Hi, I'm Nomad Nurse Z, and I help nurses find remote nursing jobs without prior remote experience. In today's video, I'll be talking about our first month on the road living in our RV, and today I have two special guests. One is Lomez Marie, this cat. Second one is Justin D'Agostino, my boyfriend, and today we're just going to be having a conversation about maybe what we wish we knew, or things that we learned during our first month on the road. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Things we learned while on the road. The first thing that really comes to mind when living in an RV are the appliances. And what is our least favorite thing about the RV that we learned?
Well, I think we have two that are of main concern. Mine is, well, first I should say this is called a grand design, and after being in it in a few months, I think it should just be called the design. I think they could make it a little bit better for it to be grand. For instance, if you look at the electrical setup in this RV, it runs off a 50 amp service, and that should be more than enough to power it and the appliances. However, if you use a few appliances at the same time, like the coffee machine or a grinder, an air fryer, if you have more than two, sometimes even it's happened with two when they're going. I was just using my coffee machine and an air fryer, and it short circuits. The GFI, I think that's what it's called, the thing shuts off, and you have to go and flip the circuit breaker off and on again when you're in the middle of trying to make breakfast or dinner. It's so annoying, and it happens every time we try to use more than one appliance at the same time. So that's my number one fault with this that I don't like, but she might have a different one. What's yours?
So my thing that I really hate doing, and I actually cried today because it was so frustrating, Justin, you can vouch for me, was the oven, and I could not light the oven for the life of me. Justin taught me a trick that did not work. No fault to him, but he told me to turn on the stove first, and hopefully that would help light the stove, because the stove, of course, is not electric, and I could not do it because I had to turn. You have to turn two knobs at the same time. Like, one is the igniter knob, and the other one is for the location you want the fire to be lit. So versus the stove versus the oven. I couldn't do it for the life of me. I started crying. I hate it. You have to get down on your knees basically to try to look to see if it's lit or not. Luckily, I'm in my 30s, and so this is something that is easy for me to do, to check and peek and hunch over to see if it's lit. But if I was an older person doing this would be really hard on my back.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there might be some older men, women, non-binary people out there right now that are much more limber and flexible than both of us, so I don't know.
Well, anyway, moving on.
If you can do it, but the point being is that it's tricky, and you shouldn't have to go to a yoga class in order to start your stove.
Exactly.
So you have to hold the thing down, you have to bleed the line, let the gas get going, you have to hold it down for a certain amount of time so the pilot light doesn't go out, and you have to gently put it on. It's a whole ordeal. It's difficult to use. Again, it's a design, but I don't think it's great.
Okay. So another thing is the shower. So living on the road in an RV, your showers are going to be smaller than what you're used to in an apartment or a home. And one thing that kind of me being 5'1", learned really quickly is that the shower goes right over my head, and it doesn't I have to stand up against the wall to get the water to trickle down me. So something that Justin did was just made a flexible, movable shower head so that I can tilt it down so that I can actually have the shower and not have to go up to the wall. So that was something living on the road that I had to get adjusted to. It's very, very tight corridors, I think, for either one of us. It's a very small shower, and I think that kind of happens in most RVs, but that's one thing that I kind of had to get used to and accustomed to. The other thing is the size of the fridge. Well,
before we go to the fridge, I really don't like the door, the shower door.
Let's talk about the shower door.
Yeah, the shower door. It's like made out of rice paper.
Yeah.
It is, and like I know that they're trying to do all they can to save weight, but I think a 5-pound glass or some kind of material that is a little bit sturdy and can open and close is a lot better than this rice paper that like rolls out, and then if it gets wet it has to like dry before it can be fully retracted. Again, not a very grand design. It feels very cheap and flimsy, and I don't like that.
Not great. So basically look at your type of shower door if you're interested in looking at RVs like that. That matters. So can we go to the fridge now?
If you like.
Okay, so the fridge is smaller. It's definitely bigger than like a college-sized fridge. So
What's a college-sized fridge?
College, you know, those little like cubes, basically, like the little cubes that you can just put a couple of things. But this is not a full-size. What do they call it? They call it.
I didn't know it went. Is it like junior high fridge, high school fridge, college fridge, grad fridge?
Shut up. So it's smaller than your typical apartment or house fridge that you would have. It's kind of like the awkward teenager in between. But mainly the main area of concern is the freezer. So like for example, a full size pizza that you would get, like a frozen size pizza, I have to put it in. I can't put it in laying down. I have to have it standing up. And then every time I open the freezer, I have to catch it. So like if that gives you any indication of how small it is, and you can look at our previous video where like we give you a tour inside so that you can know exactly what I'm talking about. But that was also another adjustment, is that as far as grocery shopping, I have to really be mindful of what I'm buying and if it can fit in our fridge/freezer.
Yeah, we just have to shop for all of the miniature products.
Yes.
So instead of getting like the full-size Coca-Colas, she has to get the mini-size Coca-Colas.
Which I love anyway.
Or like instead of being able to get like a gallon of milk, we have to get like the pint or the half gallon. And for me, like if I get my beer or a drink that doesn't come in miniature size, if I can't find the ones that are like the mini bar sizes, I have to put them in the exterior fridge. So it's all kinds of like compromises over space.
Yeah. So those are just a few things on the inside that we've learned. There's more, but I want to talk about the outside because we kind of like hit the main points. So of course you see Miss Lomez Marie here. So let's talk a little bit about the cat and traveling with a cat, because I know some of you guys out here are only interested in this video for the cat. So Justin, tell us a little bit about Lomez. This is her first time on video. Who is she? You know, how does she like traveling in the truck? You know, how do you make sure that she's comfortable and everything? Like, what's her deal?
Well, her deal, she's, I don't know if she's a typical cat, because she's lived in at least 10 states. I think this is her 28th, maybe even up to 30 different places that she's lived. So long story short, she's very flexible and adaptable. So I've seen all these different videos where people like have to get their cats habituated to the RV, where they'll put them in something for like an hour, or then they'll move to 2 hours, and then they'll go to 3 hours and then see how it's going. Lomez, I was just like, Lomez, we're moving again tomorrow. And kind of just threw her into it. But we knew that we've already made enough improvements to where she could handle that. So for instance, we took out the little dinette that, again, we skipped over, but I would have mentioned that that's not a very grand design. If you're a 5 or 6 year old kid, or you know, a person of very short stature, maybe that would be appropriate for you to sit in and eat dinner in. But for anyone that's over 5 foot tall, you feel very cramped in there. So we took out that dinette and we put in her cat tower. So that's a space for her to be able to go up, and she has to her own, so that makes it comfortable for her. We also picked out a truck that has a back seat, so that when we're driving, she has the area where she can roam around a little bit. She can go under the seat. Her litter box is back there. She has to, you know, go pee or poop, so she's comfortable. So we give her the things that, you know, she will need, and then she adjusts accordingly. And if she is super stressed out, just like a human would have a Xanax or something, she has her gabapentin, and she'll take one of those. She gets a little bit loopy, but she'll, fall right asleep or be a little wobbly, and by the time she comes around and gets back to her feisty self, we're at the next location.
Right, and we've kind of learned that around 3 to 4 hours is kind of the sweet spot for travel time in the truck. I think that, driving the truck, we've learned a lot. I like to drive a little bit slower than Justin does. My sweet spot for driving is like between 50 and 60 miles an hour.
And my sweet spot is the speed limit.
Is the speed limit.
Whatever the speed limit is, I go there, I hit the cruise control.
Yes.
And
yes. So we have longer road days when I'm driving versus just him. But it's just about learning our comfortability, where we're at with when we want to drive, or how long we want to drive and how fast we want to drive. But yeah, that's kind of what we've found, and that's something that you would probably find as well, kind of like how long you can be in the car with an animal and how fast you want to go. If you want to go the speed limit, that's fine, but I just really don't honestly feel very in control of the trailer that I'm pulling behind me when I drive faster. So that's something that I've kind of figured out. I didn't think it would be a problem to drive speed limit, but when I drive speed limit, it just makes me feel like I don't have full control of the trailer behind me. Maybe that's just me not being accustomed to not having having a trailer behind me versus usually I don't. And I know it's usually safer just to drive the speed limit. But if I'm being honest, that's something that I've learned that's my kind of sweet spot. So another thing, speaking of animals, is that while we were in Gatlinburg, that was where we spent our first month. We were able to see a lot of things while we were there. A lot of mountains, very pretty in the fall. But we encountered bears. Do you want to tell them about the bears? How we encountered them and what they were doing, where we were kind of located during the time that we encountered them?
Yeah, I think our appliances and our video doorbell did the encountering. But yeah, Gatlinburg is in the Smoky Mountains. It's in Tennessee. It's known for its black bears. So I thought that we would see one or two, whenever, 3, 4, when we were there. But I didn't expect them to be so close to our campsite and our trailer. We followed the normal precautions of not having food laying out. But I think I stupidly underestimated a bear's sense of smell. And I had a deep fryer that was outside. It was covered up, and I had a lid and a weight on top of it that might, keep out the common raccoon or possum. But when you're dealing with a male black bear, probably weighs over 300 pounds, it took that little lid and little weight off of it and flung it off and spilled the deep fryer over all of the stuff that we had outside, which was like a mattress cover, our shoes. I was working at the job site there, so I had sweaty shirts and stuff that I had out there. Got all the deep fryer stuff on it. The bear proceeded to drag back to its den, and we lost most of them. I think you went up the following day, and I pointed out where they were on the hill, and you retrieved some of them. And I think one of my shirts I washed, but it still has a claw mark in it, where the male bear left. But not only after that night, he started coming back in subsequent nights, trying to get more food, but we took everything inside, but that didn't stop him from looking. He went into the back of our pickup truck. He tried to disconnect our sewer line. He was messing with the WeBoost cable. And then after a few days, he finally left. But then it was either his mate or another female bear and her cubs. They came to our trailer site. And this was when I was out with my friend Kersey, at dinner. And I got a notification at the Ring doorbell. And I look in on it, and who was there?
Mr. Bear.
No, Mrs. Bear.
Mrs. Bear.
It was a female bear with 2 cubs, and I go on the Ring doorbell, and I have the voice activated, and I go, "Hey, get out of there, you silly bears!" And then the bears were freaked out by hearing my voice, and then they scattered off. So
Yeah.
we had a few bears at the campsite. So if you are camping in the woods, know that you're not always going to be the highest member on the food chain, and you might need to have a noisemaker. Usually when we yelled or made some kind of racket or noise, they would eventually hear it and get scared and run off. So that was kind of the end of it. It didn't escalate into any harmful situation, but just know that there are big animals out there. And I think Lomez, the RV cat, has had enough camera time, so she's gonna leave.
She's headed out. And then let's talk a little bit about us.
What about us?
So something that I feel like we had to learn was what our dynamics would be as far as like who would do what. So right now I kind of am in charge of the inside of the RV, and Justin is in charge of the outside of the RV, like getting the truck hitched to the trailer, and I'm kind of in charge of making sure that everything doesn't fall over while we're traveling. So that was also interesting to try to figure out, and it was natural. It wasn't like we had any kind of like prior discussion or anything, but that was something that I learned during our first month, kind of like what to expect and kind of what our roles and responsibilities would be.
Okay, we can talk about some of them. So like for me, what I do when she refers to the outside is like I make sure that all the slides seal properly. I make sure that the wheels are blocked when they should be blocked, and then I take the blocks off when they need to be taken off. I store those properly. The stabilizers, I make sure that they're fully retracted. I make sure that our Wii Boost is taken down and everything is secured. And then I make sure that our, is it the stabilizer, the thing that connects to the RV? The sway bar. I make sure that our sway bars are connected. I make sure that the truck gets pulled back properly and gets hooked up to the trailer hitch properly. I make sure that it's connected, the electronics to the truck are connected to the trailer. I make sure that everything is clear on the outside, that the trailer hitch is sealed properly, and that the truck is in, tow haul mode. And then I double check with you that everything else is ready to go, so you can talk about some of your stuff that you do.
Well, and sometimes Justin likes to forget things, like the keys on the back of the pickup truck. So it's nice that we realize, the things that maybe, like the other person's tendencies. Like for me, there's things I forget too. Well, I'm just saying that because there's two of us, it's nice versus just being like one person doing this by myself. It's nice because we split the responsibilities, and like I kind of know where his faults are, and he knows where my faults are. So that's also something that I've kind of learned. You have something to say?
Yeah, to my credit though, it's a keyless car, so we don't need it to be in the ignition. So as long as it's within a 6-foot radius of the steering wheel, it'll still turn on and do its job.
Yes, and there's a lot of things that you do for me as well. I'm just bringing up like working together. There's things that we've learned about each other. Yeah,
I am a little bit forgetful, but we have ways to remedy that, like the tile.
Yeah, we bought like this tile that goes on the keychain, so if we lose the keys, we can just go on the phone, and then the phone will send out a signal to where the keys are, and it'll make a noise. It'll ring at you until you find it. Mm-hmm. So that's been interesting as well. And then just being in Gatlinburg, I'll talk a little bit about being in Gatlinburg. We weren't staying out of sight or anything, which I think...
What does that mean?
So it means that we weren't like at a campground. We weren't at a campground. Like we did have electricity and sewer, so I guess it was technically a site, but it was a site away from like any other RVs. We didn't stay at a campground. So where we were located in Gatlinburg was isolated. I think we can agree on this. It was isolated. We had full hookups, but there was no one else around, which was nice. But the drawback was that we didn't have things like campground hosts if we needed any assistance. We definitely was not leveled naturally. Justin had to level it. So yeah, it was a little bit difficult to get in and out of, which most campgrounds I don't think pose such a challenge. So that's something that, looking back, I don't know that I would have recommended that for a new beginner. And it was our first month on the road, figuring everything out. But it definitely was an experience and an adventure. So, speaking of adventures, some other things in Gatlinburg that we thought were nice were the dinner feuds. That's something that was unique to Gatlinburg, something that's not in like our city. And
might not be in our city, but I think that we have dinner feuds every other night.
Yep. So that was nice and fun. They had like a little performance, and you got to eat while they, had that show going on. And then the other restaurant I really liked was Paula Deen's restaurant. Which, Paula Deen, if you're watching, I do love you, but please let us bring home some of the food. That's something that I learned Paula Deen's restaurant does not allow as of the recording of this tape, which was disappointing to find out because it was my first time there and I didn't realize that. And we actually ordered like a whole new set of like family meal, thinking that maybe we could possibly bring it home. I think it was your first time too, right, at Paula Deen's?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I always kind of get a kick out like what is when you get to the core of like American values, and I think doggy bags or taking stuff to go is one of the things that makes us American. And you have Paula Deen, who's one of the quintessential American chefs, and she's not going to let us take home leftovers from her family style restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe I'm not an expert on family style restaurants. Do other family style restaurants allow to go bags? I don't know, but it was shocking.
Put in the comments below if you think Paula Deen should allow take home bags and to go boxes. I'm just curious if you think that yes, it should be allowed, or no, like, hey, you get a free-for-all kind of like eat as much as you want buffet. It makes sense. Like, let me know. But anyway, moving on from the restaurants, some things that I really enjoyed as far as the experience went was Anarchista, which I think is relatively new to Gatlinburg in the last 10 or so years. I remember going there over 10 years ago, and I don't think it was there. But it was really nice to be able to see the panoramic sky view of Gatlinburg. We did have to go up a gondola / ski lift. That was very scary. Justin and I are both afraid of heights, but we got up there.
Yeah, and again, if heights are something that you're afraid of, you might want to have an extra glass of liquid courage, or maybe take a gabapentin if you're Lomez, or a Xanax if not. It'll be a good night. Once you get there, they have good restaurants on top of the hills. You can go shopping. To me, it looks kind of like a cool, little European-style village. You can walk through the trees. They have stuff for kids, like little playgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
They have the big tower that you get those panoramic views. We saw another bear, or two bears, while we were there. They were running up on the hill, and they had their staff kind of shooing them away with whistles and stuff.
And they've got a sky bridge as well that you can walk across, kind of a wooden bridge, and it's kind of it moves as you walk. So that was kind of scary, so we didn't do that, but that was also available. Mm-hmm. So another thing that I just enjoyed about Gatlinburg was the fishing. We did catch a fish. Justin caught a fish while we were there, so I'll put a little video here of that experience. But
yeah, they have a lot of good trout fishing in Gatlinburg. Mm-hmm. Just make sure you follow the rules and regulations, and make sure your permits are either good for the city of Gatlinburg or for the national park. Just check the websites, ask at the information booths which one you need to get, make sure you're using the right kind of hooks, make sure you know the limits, know what days that they stock the rivers. And yeah, once you do all that, go out and have a good time. We caught a rainbow trout, took it home, cooked it up for dinner. It was
there wasn't a whole lot of meat on it, though. It was kind of disappointing, but it was still nice to be able to catch something. So overall, we really learned a lot for our time in Gatlinburg. And yeah, just something for the books. And I think moving forward, we really learned a lot, especially about sites in general too, like booking the sites. I know there's a lot of apps for that, and I'll have like a whole nother video about that. That's a whole another thing. But there's a lot of time that goes into booking things, and Justin was the one that would call looking for places that we would need to stay at. They're expensive. I didn't know this really before, but I mean, kind of the average is like what, $50 to $70 a night or something like that.
It just depends on where you are in the season.
Depends.
If you're low season, mid season, off season, high season. If you want a full hookup, preferred site. There's many different variables, and some of the apps or the websites might not be that reliable. I mean, I like to trust technology up to a point, but when you're doing this kind of stuff, when like your kind of home base is on the line, I always feel a little bit safer talking with someone there, and you know, maybe not like someone that's going through training or it might be their first week, but talk with someone that's been there for either years or a manager, or get something in writing, get an email confirmation, all that kind of stuff.
Anyway, there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't think I could do this by myself, so I'm definitely appreciative of Justin being here. And then yeah, I think that's everything. That's a good overview of our first month, kind of the things that we learned, the environment that we were in, and we'll do some future videos of the second site we were in, and then of course how we stay connected, how we work from the road. We'll do a video on that, so if you're interested in that, subscribe so you don't miss out on that. But yes, I am interested in knowing, you guys, about your opinion on Paula Deen, so put that down below. But otherwise, I think that's all I have for this video. Justin, you have anything else you want to say?
Well, yeah, that was just the first month. We've been on the road longer than that, and we have much more to talk about, like propane, water filtration.
Lots of things.
Electricity usage. We're going to do a video on the WeBoost, how we stay connected. So there's tons of different things that we can get into, as well as I can ramble on about the things that I don't think is that grand about this design. I wish they would do better. Talk about if we were to do this in the future, what we might change. So there's tons of stuff that we can talk about in future videos. So please check it out, subscribe, like it, and if you like coffee, why don't you come over and you support my channel? So subscribe to me as well. We'll put a link somewhere here, down here, across somewhere. Click on it, subscribe, like it, do all that stuff.
Okay. Otherwise, thank you, nurses, for watching, and until next time, bye for now.